Good afternoon, my name is Matt and I'm Head of Product Design at Redgate Software. So in this talk I'm going to share my experiences and insights having gone through the process of introducing product trios, or what we now refer to as product leadership teams, essentially a cross-functional product leadership model. So first, a quick bit about me. My name is Matt, I'm Head of Product Design at Redgate Software. Redgate Software, if you don't know, develops solutions for data professionals to develop, deploy and manage database changes across their entire estate. I've been working in user experience and product design now for over 14 years and I've been at Redgate for about 6 years, where I now work as part of our divisional leadership team alongside peers in engineering, product and delivery. Prior to that, I worked in a variety of industries including local government, education, gaming and B2B software. So in this session, I'm going to cover off the following topics. Firstly, why we introduce product leadership teams, also known as PLTs. How do PLTs and product designers as part of PLTs work at Redgate? And what does a good PLT look like? And inclusive of that, what are the principles of cross-functional leadership? So first off, let me go through our story, introducing, establishing, and then eventually scaling what is now our product leadership model. So if we rewind the clock to 2017, we had cross-functional teams comprising of around 5 software engineers, a product designer, technical lead and product manager, with delivery support, coaching and overall program management provided by our development leads. Responsibility for product leadership typically sat somewhere between the PM and development lead, with often a strong bias towards commercial goals and a throughput of features. Designers and in some cases technical leads would find themselves working further downstream of key product decisions. PMs would lean on tech leads to provide technical insight and to assess the feasibility of ideas, but largely with a focus on delivery. Designers were focused then on more tactical work, primarily in the solution space, and discovery practices were somewhat detached from wider, more strategic product decisions. As a result of this structure and our definition of roles and responsibilities, we were at the time able to form the following diagnosis. Product leadership was unofficially spread across 3 roles with unclear expectations. Product designers, technical leads and product managers all had some degree of influence over the overall direction of the product and what to build. But we often saw an imbalance of concerns and perspectives between these key influential roles. For example, designers not having a forum in which to share key insights or express a perspective on the intended or sometimes unintended experience. As a result, we'd see some misalignment and even divergence between the team's wider learning goals and discrete streams of research activities. Those individuals often felt out of the loop with key product decisions, where the rationale was at times opaque and rarely felt to be a product of collaboration. There was a lack of support for our technical leads, where at times they felt solely accountable for a myriad of team and product decisions. Based on our read of the situation, we pitched for the introduction of a trio structure and started to lobby for this model with key stakeholders and groups. There was precedent and evidence of this model working well in other successful organisations, including the likes of Atlassian, Google and Airbnb, just to name a few. Our pitch was based on the premise that an experiment with this model would lead to the following benefits. We'd set clearer expectations of these key decision-making roles. We'd see a better balance of concerns and perspectives across design, engineering and product. We'd be able to establish stronger, more supportive leadership peer groups. And we'd see improved alignment around strategy, outcomes and learning goals. Ultimately, we were hedging an informed bet that the introduction of cross-functional leadership would lead to teams making better product decisions. In this model, a product leadership team, or PLT, sees a product manager, product designer and technical lead coming together to form the core of the team. The responsibility for product leadership sits across these 3 roles, shifting the dynamic to consider a better balance of discovery, or what to build, and delivery, how to build it. This gives designers and technical leads more latitude to operate further upstream, aligning around product strategy and with a focus on key product outcomes. Product managers, technical leads and designers collaborate to explore the opportunity space around a given business outcome, prioritising their shared learning goals and determining the product roadmap. This provides a platform for an experienced designer to operate more strategically, emphasising where and how the product can and should meet the needs of the market. So the hypothesis behind PLTs was formed on the basis of teams being able to make better product decisions, driving innovative, customer-centric products. But what does that better product decisions actually mean? Essentially, most product decisions can be deconstructed into three attributes: desirability, do customers want it? Feasibility, can we build it? And viability, does it make commercial sense? Each of these dimensions plays to the key strengths and perspectives of the roles that comprise a PLT: product, design, and engineering respectively. So when a team is deciding what to explore and eventually what to build, the intersection of these attributes is key to making great decisions, that being those that derive the right outcomes for the customer and the business. Fast forward now 3 years, and this has become our default model for product leadership. All product teams now follow our PLT structure, putting design at the core of our product decisions, ensuring equal product representation as between these three core product disciplines. And just as we've evolved our portfolio and iterated on our team structures, moving from point tools to coherent solutions, our model for leadership has also had to evolve and scale. So within the last year, we've iterated on PLTs to recognise the need for group level or product line leadership, leading us to more recently introduce group leadership teams, or what we call GLTs. So group leadership teams, or GLTs, comprise of senior leaders from each discipline, namely group product managers, lead product designers, and software architects. They similarly come together to form the core of leadership for a given product group or product line. They operate across the entire problem space to address more complex challenges, requiring them to align and coordinate across multiple teams and capabilities. Their job is to provide leadership and direction for a wider solution, again bringing a healthy balance of perspectives into a senior leadership forum. They play a key bridging role in translating the wider vision, strategy and objectives into something individual teams can align their efforts around, ensuring, for example, we have a holistic and coordinated approach that aligns multiple designers or teams to a shared and overarching experience. GLTs provide the next tier of product leadership necessary to support these new and more complex team topologies. So how do PLTs and designers in PLTs work at Redgate? You'll no doubt have heard and read about the organisations that operate a similar trio model. But aside from the fundamentals of membership and representation, there really isn't much out there to describe how they work in practice. The details I'll share in this section are based on our situation and circumstances that are relevant to Redgate specifically and our wider operating model. So the caveat here is that in terms of implementation, scope and remit, the concepts may differ from one org to the next, and be prepared to adapt and iterate this to fit within your context. So you've established your trios, framed the intent and have a view for the benefits of that model. But day to day, what are they, the leadership team, collectively accountable for? PLTs provide direction and drive team alignment in terms of vision, strategy and desired outcomes, as I mentioned, from a customer's perspective in service of the business. They help frame outcome-focused objectives, OKRs in our case, and the associated leading behavioural indicators of success. They help the team to prioritise where and how to spend their efforts and to arbitrate decisions about where to make acceptable trade-offs. They drive a programme of customer engagement and co-creation necessary to both discover new opportunities and help the team determine what to build. They help to scope, plan and review work in progress, championing the team's velocity of learning and their quality in execution. And they review and track progress of their experiments relative to desired product outcomes and any key success criteria. But in practice, this is often expressed as a more fluid and flexible model. As mentioned earlier, within PLTs, its members will have different expertise and skills that naturally bias their activities towards different aspects of the product process. To illustrate, we can frame this relative to the double diamond, delineating those activities that fall into either the problem space or the solution space. We can see how the dynamics of the group and the emphasis on its members might therefore wax and wane. For example, the PM is principally driving planning and strategic decisions, collaborating closely with designers and technical leads. When it comes to problem discovery, identifying new opportunities or helping narrow down and frame the most valuable problem to solve, these activities are likely to bias towards the research and analysis skills of product and design. And finally, when exploring ideas for how we might solve a said problem, there's likely an emphasis on tech and design to drive the exploration and testing of new product ideas. So while the group as a whole are key stakeholders throughout, they adapt their relative emphasis, perspective and input according to the scenario. This table attempts to explore the practicalities of this model further, specifically how it relates to different types of product decisions. I should caveat that this is not a hard and fast decision-making framework, and instead attempts to illustrate who is broadly accountable for different types of decisions. At Redgate, we strongly believe in empowered teams who are given problems to solve, not just a backlog of implementation tasks. So with this, there is clearly a balance to strike between those decisions that shape and influence the direction of the product, i.e. what problems to solve, and affording the wider team the autonomy to creatively and collaboratively choose how to solve said problems. This model also recognises the need for PLT to operate further upstream from our ongoing delivery efforts, working closely with their customers to determine and decide what to build before the team builds it. While the PLT are accountable for and likely lead on discovery activities, they still engage with the wider delivery team in the discovery process, its goals and outcomes. Downstream and during delivery activities, the tech and design components of the PLT will steer and guide implementation. However, decisions about exactly how to implement a given idea still sit with the wider product team. I mentioned the balance of perspectives earlier as being necessary to create the best product decisions. So while the goal is to drive healthy collaborative discussion, not all decisions are equal. Representation across these three disciplines also requires these folks to lean into their relative expertise and be accountable for championing certain aspects of practice. So within, say, a delivery scenario where the goal is to release the first slice of customer value, we expect the designer to champion quality and usability of a given implementation. Similarly, we'd look to a technical lead to speak to the quality, simplicity and robustness of code whilst ensuring sound, wider technical architectural decisions. Of course, sometimes it can be hard to unpick or unravel the commercial, design and technical components of a given idea. However, where it's clearly a decision about how someone might interpret, navigate or interact with a solution, then that should fall squarely in the core of design. While we're clear to set a stall out that these folks are peers, it doesn't mean all decisions have to be a product of democracy. It's okay to defer these decisions and lean into expertise where right and reasonable to do so, advocating the need for folks to play to their relative strengths. Focusing on the design element of the PLT for a second, what are designers accountable for and how do they contribute to these leadership and directional activities? Firstly, they drive a healthy approach to discovery that sees the PLT lead exploration of the opportunity space, conducting small, regular research activities with their customers. They bring insight and analysis from these discovery activities to identify customer opportunities, needs, pains and delighters that will inform and support our strategic decisions. They work with the PLT to identify leading customer behaviours and associated success metrics that we believe will drive the desired product outcomes. They help to determine the experiments the PLT should run in order to conclude what to build, i.e. what ideas stand the best chance of driving those outcomes. They provide mid to long-term design direction by helping define and communicate the desired or to-be experience relative to the product's North Star or longer-term vision. They advocate for quality and usability of what teams are releasing, ensuring there's a high bar for design and experience throughout delivery. In other words, they act as a PO for experiential requirements or user needs and accountable for associated experiential measures or UX metrics. So what have we learned from introducing PLTs and elevating a design perspective as part of this leadership dynamic? Firstly, this can be a hard transition for a designer, shifting from a focus on craft and execution towards a balance of craft and strategy. For many, this may be their first foray into a leadership role, and that requires a level of maturity and experience beyond the practice of design. As such, we often see less experienced designers struggle to establish themselves alongside strong and influential technical or product folk. To succeed relies upon them developing a new set of soft skills, including communication, persuasion and influencing, delegation, advocacy, and compromise. We recognise that not all PLTs need direct design representation. For example, underlying technical capabilities, where an engineer might assume both a design and technical hat. PLTs provide a forum to align around learning goals relative to strategy and for design to bring customer insight and experiential perspective into strategy and planning. Finally, PLTs have allowed designers to operate further upstream, involving them more often than not in key product decisions, where they're able to influence and shape the direction of the product. So what does a healthy, high-performing product trio look like, and what are some of the principles that should guide the behaviours of these cross-functional groups? Firstly, members of PLTs act as co-owners of the product. They're aligned around their understanding of strategy in the opportunity space, customer pains, needs and delighters in the pursuit of key product outcomes. Each has an equal stake and role to play in the product's success. Secondly, they provide a longitudinal direction or view, leading and guiding the wider team in the pursuit of those outcomes. This includes deciding what problems to solve and in what order, what to build or not, and how to determine success. Thirdly, they embrace a healthy tension as specialists and experts within their relative fields. They are actively encouraged to bring their views and opinions to bear in a forum that is conducive to good decision making. Digging deeper, I'll share what I believe to be the 6 key principles for healthy cross-functional leadership. Trust is a prerequisite for healthy tension, establishing a balance of skills and experience, illustrate responsibilities and leverage expertise, provide a forum for directional decision making, empower teams with clear decision ownership, and jointly lead and drive product discovery. So number 1, trust is a prerequisite for healthy tension. They should view one another as peers and partners, irrespective of title, status, or any sense of perceived hierarchy. So it's not about stating their claim for the best design, architecture, or business plan. It's about making pragmatic, well-rounded decisions that are in the best interests of the product and its customers. While also members of a wider cross-functional team, they should first and foremost recognise each other as their primary team. Here, trust, respect and humility are key to creating a healthy environment for unfiltered debate and inclusive decision making. Number 2, establish a balance of experience and skill. So where there is imbalance of skill or experience, members may have to assume multiple hats in an attempt to address cross-functional concerns. For example, in a PLT with an inexperienced designer or PM, that might see other members needing to stretch and assume different responsibilities in order to support. Where there are gaps, maybe as a result of open roles, then again, other members of the PLT will not likely need to assume and wear multiple hats, at least temporarily. And as we've experienced with enabling teams and technical capabilities, where a different composition of PLT might be what's required as a deviation from the model. It's important to be mindful about these gaps, experiences and balance of representation when forming PLTs, and how a different dynamic might bias their decisions. This is also an opportunity though to proactively identify members' strengths, to support each other as a team and to co-develop their collective leadership practices. Number 3, illustrate responsibilities and leverage expertise. So be explicit upfront about who is responsible for what amongst PLT members and where the group have shared ownership for neutral responsibilities. It's not about drawing hard and fast boxes around these concepts or keeping folks in their lane. Instead, it's about how to best leverage the skills and expertise they each bring to the group. They should look to play to their strengths of those who represent each discipline, and that's a healthy foundation upon which to model their ways of working. Without that, we see folks stepping on each other's toes, second-guessing their approaches, and potentially diluting the impact of their relative expertise and experience. At Redgate, we've used an activity called the Triangle of Responsibility to help visually illustrate the boundaries and overlaps between cross-functional members. Number 4, a forum for directional decision making. The PLT are there to align and lead the team towards desired product outcomes, removing or reducing ambiguity and helping the team to determine where best to spend its time and effort. As such, PLT activities should be principally forward-looking, biasing their interactions towards driving alignment and decision-making, rather than using their time together as another ceremony for operational management and delivery. Where the wider team are likely focused on the here and now, the PLT should also be concerned with what's coming up next, their North Star, and shaping the mid to long-term roadmap. Number 5, empowered teams with clear decision ownership. So empowered teams are given problems to solve, not a laundry list of features to implement. As such, PLTs are responsible for the what's, where the wider team are responsible for the how's. Decisions that fundamentally impact the shape and direction of the product, i.e. what problems to solve or what ideas to test, ultimately still sit with PLT. So while the PLT should actively encourage a mindset towards shared product ownership throughout the wider team, they, the PLT, remain accountable for its direction, what's in or out scope, and the prioritisation of effort and competing interests. Number 6, jointly lead and drive product discovery. The PLT should act as the core of any good discovery team, comprising of those with the right skills, mindset, and longitudinal view necessary to test and evaluate new product ideas. This should see the PLT collaborating upstream, testing ideas and shaping concepts, while the wider team determines the exact shape of a solution and focuses on execution. The PLT, therefore, is responsible for owning and driving a pipeline for learning and a backlog of experiments. Their job is to help reduce uncertainty, mitigate risk, and determine what to build before the teams start building it. So to conclude, the goal is for these folks to work together in relative harmony, with the foundation of trust and respect that allows them to feel safe in challenging each other's ideas and perspectives, while still recognising when it makes sense to defer to the subject matter expert. To summarise, a happy PLT is one where they are partners in discovery, identifying the problems to solve and ideas to test. They advocate for and champion the value of research as a shared team-wide responsibility. They jointly advocate for quality in design and code, striking a balance between meeting the needs of existing customers and the pursuit of new value. They have a shared mental model for the big picture or North Star and can collectively map between the short-term wins and that longer-term vision. They establish mutual respect for their expertise and understand the boundaries and overlaps of responsibilities and different types of decisions. They proactively seek to build common leadership skills and practices together, recognising they are stronger as a whole. And finally and fundamentally, they're nice to each other. They've established a high degree of trust and are empathetic and supportive of their collective needs. Thank you very much. That concludes my talk. If you'd like to know more, obviously you can reach out on social media, or I'll leave my details directly. If you're interested in product trios and leadership groups and have your own views and opinions about how those have been applied or experimented with in your organisations, I'd absolutely love to hear more and share some stories. Thank you very much.